friends. I'm Karen, and this is the Family Food for Moms podcast. We're talking about inspiration for family cooking and dining. Today, we're going to talk about all kinds of different meals that you can make from ground beef, or beef mince, as some people call it. Some of these, I'm sure, are familiar to you, and others you may not have heard of or tried before. I'm going to get creative myself and try one of these that I haven't tried before, because ground beef is a good, cheap meat to be able to buy. The most well-known, I think, is to do a Bolognese, which is a rich, hearty, tomato-y ground beef. So you would start with some onions and garlic, and then you would brown the beef, and you would add salt and pepper and herbs, and then some tomato paste, perhaps tomato puree or crushed tomatoes, and perhaps some basil. Makes a rich sauce for use over pasta or potatoes. The longer you cook this, the deeper and richer the flavor. I like to add a little bit of fresh garlic near the end of the cooking time and some chopped up basil leaves to really enhance the flavor. We also make a version of this for nachos, which is very similar, except it has less tomato puree in it and perhaps more spices, more onion powder, cumin, smoked paprika to give it a bit of spice, and then cooked down so it's a less saucy meat at the end. It's more bulky so that it's easier to scoop up with the nachos. Similar thing is chili, if you want to have them with nachos or inside tacos. So that would be ground beef, browned, and then adding cooked beans, tomatoes, chili powder, and spices, and then cooked into a delicious chili mix. I'm sure you've done sloppy joes. That would be similar to the Bolognese, sweet and savory tomato-based sauce, but served on a bun or a roll. So cooking your Bolognese in the same style as used for pasta, or if you prefer a spicier version, less tomato, you can do that as well. Then stuffing zucchini or stuffing peppers is always amazing with a mixture of ground beef, rice, and even some vegetables. So for this, you can either pre-cook the bell peppers or zucchini and then stuff them. I like to sometimes cut the bell peppers in half, put olive oil and salt on and pre-cook them, and then cook my mince separately using onion, etc. at the beginning, cooking some rice and mixing it up, using some vegetables like corn or peas or zucchini, or even the same thing as you're going to be putting them into. So if you're stuffing peppers, chop up some peppers to add to the mix, or if you're stuffing zucchini, chop up some zucchini to add to the mix and give it a quick cook or stir fry with a bit of salt. So then you're going to have your mix of ground beef, rice, and zucchini, and you're going to put it in the zucchini and bake it. The peppers, as I said, you can pre-cook and then stuff with the meat mixture. Put some cheddar, grated cheddar on top, and then just warm them when you're ready to eat. Not really sure what to call this next one, but if you think of how you can have nachos with various toppings that you scoop up, so the mince, the ground beef, the guacamole, the salsa, the sour cream or yogurt, grated cheese, etc., however you like to do it. So this one you can make layers. You make a layered dip that includes the meat. So your ground beef that you've cooked to have with nachos, you put in a layered dish. So you would put a layer of meat, then a layer of sour cream or yogurt, a layer of salsa, a layer of guacamole, a layer of grated cheese on top. And then it's something nice that you can scoop out with a big spoon onto your plate, or you can scoop out with nachos and eat it directly. Just makes it a little different for fun. Then casseroles. Ground beef goes well in lots of casseroles. An obvious one is pasta or spaghetti mixed with the meat and then cheese on top and baked, or a lasagna, or a shepherd's pie. Well, in fact, a cottage pie would be beef. The shepherd's pie uses lamb mince. and then baked with that potato on top, mashed potato. So anything that you can use the ground beef in as a casserole is delicious. Then making your ground beef into something like hamburgers. So you season your mince and you add some herbs, some salt, something like paprika, onion powder, and then you can make it into hamburger patties. You can make it into meatballs. You can make it into koftas, which is when you squish the mince onto a kebab stick and grill it. So you can change the seasoning in these. You can add breadcrumbs if you like, if you're not gluten free. You can add egg. Sometimes that helps, especially with the koftas, to hold it together. You can put a little bit of cheese inside the patty, but the possibilities are endless. So hamburgers are wonderful, and meatballs, you would then fry them to brown them and then cook them in a sauce, maybe a marinara sauce or a tomato with yogurt sauce is very nice. Swedish meatballs, so many options there as well. Then ground beef empanadas. So you have a flaky pastry filled with a spiced ground beef with onions, maybe olives, and hard boiled eggs. So this is a savory pastry from South America. It's unique but delicious. You can make a curry with ground beef. Mango goes nicely with it. So combine the ground beef with a mango curry sauce. Then you can do a hash. Before, when I mentioned bolognese on potatoes, you just top the potatoes with the bolognese and cheese. But in this case, you saute the ground beef and then you add diced potatoes or sweet potatoes with onions and some vegetables like bell peppers for an interesting breakfast or brunch or easy dinner. This is an original idea: ground beef sushi rolls. Instead of the traditional sushi fillings, try ground beef cooked with a touch of soy sauce and sesame and wrapped in sushi rice. Beef, meatball, and pineapple skewers. So we mentioned making meatballs with ground beef. So you can do your meatballs in a sauce, but then it's nice for an appetizer or a snack to do beef meatballs that are a little bit smaller and then put them on skewers. You can put them with tomato and cucumber, like a Greek salad type of skewer, or you can put them on skewers with pineapple pieces or red pepper pieces and grill those. So the meatballs have to be well held together in order for this to work, but they're really nice on skewers. In our new appetizers recipe book that's coming out soon, we do a appetizer meatball made with chutney or tomato relish. It's delicious. Beef Wellington is usually made with a fillet cut of beef, but instead of doing it that way, you can do mini bites, mini beef Wellingtons, and use the puff pastry, line it with the crepe or the prosciutto, and then use ground beef in the middle. You can even mix the ground beef and the mushrooms in the middle, and then wrap them up and bake them for a small pastry beef Wellington bite. Amazing. So again, it's inside layer, which would be ground beef mixed with mushrooms. Then you wrap that in the prosciutto and you wrap that in a crepe, and then you wrap that in puff pastry and you bake it. Then ground beef stuffed crepes. Use the crepe like a wrap and fold it around the ground beef. You can add something like pineapple in there if you like, or tomatoes, cheese, whatever you feel like. And you can do the same with puff pastry and mince. You can add your ground beef and cheese inside the puff pastry and bake it, little ground beef bites. There's a moussaka, which you can do with eggplant and beef, where you simply layer the ground beef with the eggplant and you use the bechamel sauce and bake that. Then Cornish pasties. A pasty is a puff pastry tart filled with a mixture of, in this case, ground beef, diced potatoes, onions, and then sometimes peas or corn or chopped carrots, and then baked. Those are amazing for on the go eating as well. A homemade ravioli is delicious with mince inside and cheddar or ricotta. You can do mince and ricotta cannelloni. Stuff the cannelloni with mince and ricotta and top with a bechamel sauce. There is a German one-pan dish I'm not going to try and pronounce it, which has ground beef cooked in it as usual. And then you add the vegetables to the pan. So you add the potatoes, the carrots, the onions, and a little bit of stock and some seasoning. And then you cook it down and have a one-pot dish. Then, of course, there's meatloaf, a well-known American dish. And there's an Italian meatloaf, which is similar, made with ground beef, breadcrumbs, eggs, garlic, and herbs, often served with tomato sauce, homemade, of course. You put the vegetables in the tomato sauce, then you're covered. The Hungarian stuffed cabbage rolls, you can use ground beef mixed with rice and spices, and then it's wrapped in cabbage leaves and cooked in a tomato-based sauce. And then lastly, beef stroganoff is traditionally made with beef strips, but some versions use ground beef cooked in a rich sour cream and mustard sauce, perhaps with mushrooms in, and then served over noodles or rice. So these are all inspiring ideas. I'm going to go and try out some of them. I think I want to try the ones wrapped like beef Wellington and some puff pastry tarts. Those always are enjoyed. So go and Google some recipes for your favorite ideas and try them. And I hope they turn out great. Thanks for listening. See you next time.